Welcome to edition 120, 120, 120, whatever you want, of all Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have mutual interest in serial killers. And as we are doing this podcast, it stopped us from writing to them in prison. Part 2.
Part 2. Yes.
I have to say, my least favourite episode possibly ever.
Really?
Yeah.
What about it?
I hate it. I just don't know. I don't know what it is. Reading about it, I'm just like, I don't know what it is. You know, it's just something that's just not, I don't know. I just find it sickening and miserable and weird. And I'm just like, ugh. It makes me feel like I need a shower.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that everyone, when they describe the house, is like, it stinks, is quite visceral. The family seem very complicated. Whoever you think did it, David or Robin, it's incredibly tragic. Yeah, it's...
I think we know who did it.
Well, for the sake of us not getting sued, we don't really know who did it.
I'd take him on.
He's massive.
I mean, in court.
Which one?
Sue me, reopen the case. I don't think you'd have a leg to stand on anymore.
You'd have to fight a former New Zealand All Black player, because that is who's been a huge part of getting him sort of...
Weird. So weird.
It's strange. How have you been, though?
Fine. Nothing to report, really. Just, don't know, just tired, really, and that's it. I've got nothing to report, which is not great for a podcast, is it? I mean, no, I'm fine. Nothing, it's just been nice weather, hasn't it? And just trying to enjoy life, not gigging.
Do you enjoy the heat?
Yeah, I love it. I could easily... I think it's my climate, that's me. But dry heat, bring it on. I love it. People whinging about it, I'm like, shut up. We get like 2 weeks of this every year. Just enjoy it, will you? Put a hat on and shut up. Do you like it? I don't think you're not mad on it, are you?
No, I don't mind it. I would like it if I'm on the farm, but if I'm in a city, I find it I'm not good with it, the concrete or whatever. I feel like I can't get away from it. And because usually if I'm in a city, I'm dragging a fucking huge suitcase of my shit around with me, and no one wants to be carrying stuff in that weather. It's fine if I'm at home. I have a lovely time.
Yes. I have to admit, I'm waiting for the days that I never have to drag a suitcase around anymore. I hate it. I've got 3 tour dates left as well. I'm like...
Still?
Well, went to Australia, didn't we? Had to rearrange them.
Shit, yeah.
There's one that I'm not particularly looking forward to. We'll discuss the venue later on. But every time I go there, I end up having to... My eyes almost roll out of the back of my head because nothing is ever easy. Like, just pop the microphone on. Just pop that on. Lovely stuff. Because it's the main thing you need as a comedian, isn't it? Just the microphone would be lovely.
I had that same sort of thing at a charity gig the other day, that the person organising it was like running late for whatever reason. And someone was like, oh, you know what London traffic's like? And I was like, no, I came from North Wales.
Yeah, exactly. But also, you know what it's like, so why aren't you here?
Yeah. And then they were like, so can you run the gig? And I was like, well, what do you want me to be doing? And they were like, we don't know. So yeah, it was,
there were obviously... God, kill me.
Listen, I left an impassioned 7-minute voice note explaining it all to my partner, but it was for a great cause, so there we go.
Not interested. I don't care how great the cause is.
So we're talking about the Bain family murders. This is part 2. So we kind of brought you up to everything until the morning of the murders. So... The 20th of June, 1994, David Bain has gone out on a, he does a, what's it called? Paper round. Paper round. Now, he is a runner, and so sometimes he runs it and does it very quickly. Sometimes he takes his time. He takes the family dog with him. Cassie, I think the dog's name is. He's seen going into the house at about 6:45 a.m., although that was seen on the clock of the car, and they don't know how accurate that is, but he's seen at the gate at that time. Now, at 7:09 a.m., which is a good 20 minutes later, 111 gets called. And
very dramatic call.
It's a very dramatic call, and he says they're all dead.
They're all dead.
Yes. It's quite a good impression, actually. Yes, so when he says they, he's talking about his dad, Robin, who was 58 at the time, mum, Margaret, who's 50, Arawa, his sister, who's 19, Laniette, who is 18, and Stephen, who's only 14. Now,
there's a message on the computer.
There is. They'd all
typed.
A typed message.
Yeah.
The computer's in, like, the front room, like the living room, but there's a curtain that separates it, and then it goes into a sunroom. Is that like a conservatory, I think?
I don't know, but I just imagine it stinks, and I don't want anything to do with it, quite frankly.
So you open these curtains, and in that little bit is a computer, and there's a typed message. Have you got the typed message? I've got it here.
The typed message says, "Sorry, you were the only one who deserved to stay."
Yes. So the narrative is that David comes home from his run. He goes and puts a wash on because he's sweaty.
Oh, yeah.
I think, or he changes his clothes because he's sweaty. There's something that goes on there with the change of clothes. And then he finds his mum and his dad shot. And then he phones the police. And it's so funny. If you listen to the emergency call, obviously it's not funny. It's incredibly tragic.
Oh, it's a laugh riot.
But the guy...
Nothing cheers me up than listening to calls to the emergency services. Lovely afternoon doing that. What a great laugh.
He's going, they're all dead, they're all dead. And the guy's like, okay, so what's your address? And he goes, 65 Every Street. He went, is that the one on? And then starts talking like a normal dad getting directions somewhere. He's like, okay, yeah. And if you want to cut through the back of the street. And then he's like, okay, the police will be within a bit. Isn't like, okay, keep talking to me, keep breathing. He's just is more interested in the roots there, like any dad at a barbecue.
Do you know, sometimes when you hear sort of emergency calls, I know the operators have to, get the person back in the room to get the information. But sometimes I'm like, less of the attitude. Do you know, wind your neck in? Do you know what I mean? When they're going, can you listen? Can you just, and like,
you need to calm down. Yeah, you need to calm down.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I'm like, all right. I don't know if you know this, but you work on the emergency services call. Like, people are going to phone up panicked. It really, yeah, it's like, wind your neck in, mate. Chill out.
I used to know someone who worked on before it comes through, you kind of push it to a different, the one that goes, okay, which service do you require, and then pushes it through to the right place. But you've got like loads of access if you do that, because it's Salford Keys. There's a massive call centre there. Lots of actors and stuff work there in between jobs because it's quite flexible.
999, what is your emergency?
We shall send the peelers henceforth. But you can check people's background on it if they've been arrested and things. Because this person I know looked it up and saw that their mother had been arrested and didn't know about it.
Well, you don't have to know everything about your family.
That your mum's an absolute legend.
Let your mum get arrested.
So they'd all been shot in the head with a 22 rifle. It was David's rifle, and
was
it was.
Oh. How weird.
Now he kept the rifle locked up with a key that apparently only he knew where it was. But it was in like a little box on his bedside table. When they go back to check it, the box's lid has been replaced, so it's like it hasn't been disturbed. So at 7:28 a.m, the first police arrive. It's a guy called Jeff Wiley and Kim Stevenson. Two more join them shortly afterwards. Now, it's really dark because it's winter in Australia. It's quite cold as well in Dunedin. Like I say, it's quite Welsh kind of weather.
New Zealand. Get that right.
Yes.
Not Australia. New Zealand.
Oh, did I say Australia?
You did. Don't get them started, for God's sake.
Oh, shit. I genuinely am very, very sorry.
I'm actually from New Zealand. I'm actually Canadian. All right.
Is someone moving around in your room?
Oh, don't say that. You give me the creeps. No, why?
I just saw a shadow, but it must have been you.
Do you know what it was? It was a van going past outside.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, don't frighten me.
Sorry, there's just a baby sat on your shoulder. And So
next door, actually, our neighbours here have got a very small baby. She's very cute, but it's so eerie sometimes hearing a baby cry at like 4 a.m. Like,
oh god, yeah.
I'm like, I don't like it. It's creepy.
Oh, what I remember about call handlers, I've got to tell you this. I've told you this before, but I've got to say it on here. So someone I know in my life is one of those people who always getting parking tickets, always getting fines for, doing U-turns. You just think that's a lot of money wasted. Anyway, they also were like, oh no, I shouldn't have been fined for this. So then we're meant to apply, didn't appeal it. It's going on and on and on and on. Excuse me. And as you know, with all those things, it's a racket. So they're like, it's actually about respecting the law, but if you pay it quicker, it's less.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay.
Which is why, like, footballers just park where they want.
Exactly.
Because they're just like, 50 quid parking ticket is nothing. Doesn't matter.
For the convenience, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's gone up and up and up and up and up. And this person I know is a bit of a blagger. So phones up and says, I'm really sorry, I've just got this letter. I've been away working and now I've got this massive fine. And obviously I'm happy to pay the original, but is there anything we can do? And the person it sounds like the person, the call handler is a bit of a like, well, it's definitely a man. I don't know that, but I know that. So they're like, oh, so what have you been doing? Sorry. And he said, so I've been working out the country. And then the person on the call handler is like, you in the army? And then the person I know is, like I say, a bit of a blagger, is like, I can't actually tell you what I've been doing. Oof. And then the call handler like comes alive and is like, understood. I think I know exactly what you're involved in, and gets really excited and is like, yeah, okay, well, let me see what I can do, and then was like, have you been out in Syria? Have you been in Afghanistan? I was like, I can't really talk about it. And honestly, I don't really know where I'm going until they send me. I just find out when I'm on the plane over there. So this call handler is getting so excited that they're basically dealing with like a black ops operative. So the person I know gets it taken down to the original. It's gone up to hundreds of pounds, and now it's gone down to like whatever, 40 quid, and they get a fucking military discount on it.
Oh my God. But can I not ask a question though? Like, do you not think people that would be involved in that, just the government just pay their fines anyway? Do you not think like that they'd be like, just write that off, off? Like, do you not think that there is a system for that? Military discount.
I don't think James Bond is negotiating his parking fines on the telephone. No.
Can I take your name, sir? Bond. James Bond. I'm ringing up about some parking fines.
Anyway, we're calling that person Stolen Valor now in a WhatsApp group, so it's all been worth it.
Unbelievable.
In fact, the name of the WhatsApp group has changed to Stolen Valor. That's how good it is.
Oh my God. Do you remember those bears that we saw? When we were in Australia, I went to like the World War II monument. I stumbled across it, and I went into the gift shop, and they had like teddy bears dressed in like army gear. They looked like they were about to con women on the internet. Like, what's it called? Romance fraud bears. That's what it looked like.
Do you know what's so sad? I saw a man on the train yesterday when I was heading over or day before, I was heading over to Bristol, and he had like an army backpack. He was an older guy, like middle-aged guy, probably in his 50s. One of the ones like army issue backpack.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be like, you sad fucker, there's no way you were in the army. And there's no way I knew that. But I don't know why, but I found it so embarrassing if he wasn't in the army and he has an army backpack, even though camo is a perfectly legitimate fashion choice.
And you can get from the army surplus.
Yeah, and
they're
I
good
get
bags,
it. They're good bags. But I'm like, you fucking pathetic twat. I don't know why I found it so embarrassing that he would dare to have a practical bag, but I honestly was like, I can smell how small your dick is from here. Metaphorically, I'm not shaming anyone.
I've got a US Army camouflage coat. It's very cool.
I can't wear camo, and I don't look any good in khaki. I've got one shirt I got from Download Festival when I was like 16, which is an Army Air Force one, and I do like that, but no.
Oh, I like it.
Actually, my partner has recently been to an army surplus store for some reason and has come back with
knives that.
Yeah, probably. And has come back with the problem is we don't know what force it's from, but it's stunning. Like, it stinks of mothballs, but it's a grey coat with like burgundy piping, double-breasted military jacket, and he's really tall. He looks amazing in it. But I'm like, are we going to find out this is some fascist wing of the Italian army?
No,
that you're fucking stomping around in.
No, they're not allowed to sell. They're not allowed, are they? To sell.
Oh, Rachel Fairburn, they're not allowed, but I can tell you that 1/3 of everything in our local auction house is Nazi memorabilia.
I'd say you'd send a picture of that coat to Tim, and his dad will be able to tell you what that's from.
Really? Okay,
because he was a major in the army, wasn't he?
Oh yeah,
and he knows all that kind of. He'll just look at a picture and be like, "That's such and such and such a thing."
Do you know we've got a Nazi dagger in the house? Have I told you this?
What? No. Why?
Right. It's. Do you know what?
What are you saving it for? Cheese at Christmas?
No, when my partner and I get married, we're going to get the cake with it. No, it is a very genuine. I think it's the problem is you're like, oh, it's worth a lot, and you're like, yeah, but to who? So it's a dagger that the high up in the Nazi party, they'd have it hanging from their belt. It's got like a silver acorn, and that shows that like that is a person, like a braided silver acorn. It's got like an orange handle. It's got a Nazi eagle with a swastika on. So a classic. My dad was doing some job for someone back in whatever the 60s or 70s. They couldn't pay him, and they were like, I think it was some rich aristocracy who's related to someone, I think like Mountbatten someone. And was like, oh, because he went and sorted their donkeys out for free and clipped their hooves and stuff, and was like, let me give you this. It's like worth loads. So it was taken from like some U-boat that was captured by the Allied forces. But they hang on my mantelpiece when I was growing up for years and years. It was just absolutely normal to have a piece of Nazi memorabilia hanging above the fireplace, which does explain my father's voting views.
Well, having said that, because my granddad was in the army during World War II, he would bring stuff back, and they had like, obviously not to put in the house, just stuff that he had. They had like a massive flag, like a swastika. It was like folded up, put in a thing. Obviously not on display, but just things that he brought back, being like, yeah, you know, there's a thing that happened. Anyway, my uncle stole them and sold them to somebody.
Oh my God.
I know. Yeah.
It's a shame because it would have made a lovely little T-shirt for you, that, wouldn't it?
Do you know what? We could have given them to Twin Maid. She could have made a lovely little blanket for us out of that, couldn't she? Absolutely gorgeous.
So they arrive at the house, it's dark. They think they can see. There's some reports. It's difficult because there's 2 trials. So people suddenly remember things in the years between the trials. But they see sort of a figure at the window. So they think, well, the gunman is still in the house. And either way, they're correct. And they realise later on that's David. He's sort of moving around. Now, when they get to the door, they knock on the door and try and get David to open it. He's lying on the floor of his bedroom in sort of like at the end of the bed in a fetal position. He's incredibly distraught. He just keeps saying, they're all dead, over and over again. So they're like, open the door. You can hear this on like a call. And he's like, they're all dead. He won't stand up and let them in. So they smash with like the gun handle, they smash a pane of glass in the door, reach through, open the door and let themselves in. So there's little weird things we'll start from now on. Number 1 is today's paper is folded up and it's just put on the sideboard very neatly, which is a weird thing for anyone to do because it's Robin who collects the paper. And it's so weird to be like, just pop that. You know, I'm going to go and kill my family, but I'll make sure the paper's on the side. It's a very sort of strange thing.
His son's the paper boy. Why would he be going to collect the paper?
No, as in the paper's there, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah. So they go in, they start to search the house. I mean, David's room there's 1,000 rounds of ammunition in David's room. Like,
oh, God.
He's sort of well equipped. So the murders have been committed while the lights were off. There's a silencer on the gun as well, and most of them are shot in bed. So this is meant to be that they're all killed basically without ever knowing. So Robin, they walk in. Opposite David's room is a living room, the one that we've talked about, which has got Robin in it. He's slumped on the floor. He's been shot in the head. He's got a magazine that holds 10 bullets kind of next to him, propped up on its side. That's a weird detail that's propped on its side. And a rifle near his other hand. And he's shot in the left-hand temple. Now, don't forget, he was living in the caravan. So he'd come in there, and he would come in there every morning, apparently, in the morning, and he would pray. That was the room that he would pray in. So, yeah, you've got the computer in that room. That was sort of his space, really. He'd go in there and he'd pray, but he's dead on the floor. It's weird that he shot himself in the left side of his temple. Would have been more difficult to do because it's a rifle. He's right-handed. There's lots of just strange things. The alarm is set in the caravan for 6:30 a.m. The radio is still on. The lights are still on, as if he planned to go back there. So the computer is an interesting one. So they tried to work out when it was switched on, and this is like a big bone of contention. Some people say it showed that it was switched on at 6:44 a.m. Some people are saying that's not accurate. It could have been as early as 6:39 a.m. But they're basically trying to go, that couldn't have been David, or yes, it could have been David. So it switches between the trials, which one. But basically it's a contentious point. So as you say, there's messages on the computer screen. The bullet casing from one of the shots, because the 10 magazine ammunition thing is faulty. The 5 one worked absolutely fine, but the 10 one would get jammed and you'd have to kind of reload it. So there is a casing from the bullet that is the other side of the curtain, which is so in the computer side, which is weird because really to end up there, unless it's kind of flipped through a gap, you would have to be shooting from the other side of the curtain into the room where Robin was. So it's a very weird detail that there's a casing that side. Now, they keep walking around the house. Laniette has had 3 shots to her head. Now, one went through the cheek and like up into the sinuses and damaged her brain.
Oh, God.
Well, what's strapping, because it gets more horrible. And then she's got 2 in a temple that definitely would have killed her. Now, later on, I think it's at the second trial, David says he heard Laniette gurgling. And he sort of describes this noise she was making like she was underwater. And he was like, I couldn't do anything for her. Now, she has blood on her hands. So what they think happened is whomever shot her...
what a mystery.
Well, shot her and it went up through the cheek into the brain, but didn't kill her.
Oh,
so she was alive, but her lungs were filling up with blood. And that's why she got blood on her hands, because she's in a kind of semi-conscious or unconscious state, trying to clear her face away so she can breathe, but she can't.
Oh,
now, it's
I hate this.
The 2 other it's horrible. The 2 other bullet wounds would have definitely have killed her. So David can't have heard her gurgling unless he was the one who shot her, because there was 3 bullets. She would have been shot as soon as she was shot. She should have been completely silent as soon as she was shot in the temple. There's an expert who says, no, that people can gurgle after death. And then when it's looked into it, the expert actually doesn't really know what they're talking about, and that isn't the case. But largely the consensus is...
Well, you wouldn't have the... if you're dead, you don't have the capacity to...
He's saying, oh, well, every now and then you might hear someone gurgle, that's on like stiff on the morgue, so, air escaping.
Yeah.
But then loads of other experts said what David was describing, exactly the sound is the sound of someone who is still alive and their lungs are filling up with blood and they're struggling to breathe. So it's very weird that David has heard this noise. Yes.
And the other factor is maybe sometimes people, when they're distraught, can think that they've heard something, or it could be like a false memory, or just playing devil's advocate here.
Well, no, I agree. It's like so much of this is like he's weird and acted weirdly, and like, yeah, his family's dead. And if he didn't do it, like, I don't think I would act particularly normally if I had found my family murdered. So they then keep going through the house. Then they find Margaret. She was in bed. She'd been shot in the forehead once. And yes, so there were bloody footprints going between her room and Lagnette's room.
Which, we'll come back to these because these are all the murders. Everyone's dead. We have to say this, that he was then charged 4 days later. David Bain was charged, he was 22, he's charged with 5 counts of murder. Just 2 weeks after this, the house was burnt down.
This is mad.
At the request of other family members, but also with permission of David.
Yeah,
but what the police didn't do was the evidence of the bloody footprints, they were tested with luminol on the day of the murders. And police admitted at the retrial that they should have cut those out, really, and kept the evidence. I mean, you would think.
So much was destroyed in that fire. So yeah, it was his uncle Michael Bain who goes to visit him when he's arrested in prison and says, "What we're going to do with the house?" And he also asks him outright, "Then did you do it?" And he said, "I've given my side of the story to the police, and that's everything I'm willing to say on that." And he's like, "Well, that's not a no, is it?" But yeah, they bring in on the 5th of July 1994. 65 Every Street is burned to the ground by the New Zealand Fire Department.
Bonkers.
Also with luminol, apparently when you put it on there, it shows up for about 45 seconds. So you've got that long to measure everything and photograph it. It's a very small window. These footprints will cause a huge amount of problems because they're one of the things that convicts David, and then the evidence changes, and then in the retrial they're one of the things that get David off the hook. It's a mad system. So they're going through the house, they find Margaret. Now Margaret's room adjoins Stephen's. There's a curtain and you go into Stephen's room, but the police think, oh, it's just a wardrobe behind that curtain. So they go downstairs and they find a filthy kitchen. They find like bottled fruits, bottled vegetables everywhere. And they open a curtain, and behind it they see Aroa, who is the other daughter. This is really sad. She's on her knees praying. They think she heard the shots upstairs and started praying, and she has shot while that's happened. So there is a stray shot in the room, and then she's also shot in the head. So they think someone missed first of all, and then went over and shot her in the head. Now, so the police officer goes, "I found 4 bodies." Another police officer is with David, who's just lying on the floor, started talking about black hands. It's apparently eerily quiet in the house, apart from David.
Well, yeah, everyone's dead.
But
that'll do it.
The reason why it's important that it's eerily quiet is because a wash load was put on and had finished, but they argue, David says, "Oh no, I put a wash load on when I came back," and it was still going when the police were going around, and the police were like, we thought there was someone waiting for us to kill us in every room. We were very aware of every noise that was happening in the house, and all you could hear was David every now and then. So they shout down and go, "We found 4 bodies," and the police officer shouts up, "There should be 6, including him, so there's 1 more." So they go back, and then they find Stephen. Now, every room is chaos. David's is the tidiest, but Stephen's is completely trashed. So there's definitely been a struggle. Stephen has been shot through his hand. So he was obviously put his hand up to defend himself. And I think he's been shot twice in the head. There is blood everywhere. He's also been strangled with his T-shirt. They find bits of cotton under his nails where he's tried to claw it away.
Oh my God.
His sleeve, one arm is completely out of the T-shirt. He's in like pants and a T-shirt, but he struggled out, and it's because they were using it to try to kind of garrote him.
Ugh.
There's genuinely blood all around the room, which would make sense if he's been kind of shot through the hand and is struggling. They also find in the room 3 very interesting things. 2 white formal gloves that you would wear to like a posh do that David had bought recently. One is turned...
Or did Mickey Mouse do it?
Well, Mickey Mouse. Or the guy who brings on the balls at the National Lottery. It was actually Guinevere who did it. Oh my God. I remember. Do you remember the lottery launching? It was such
I remember the very day.
Yeah.
It was huge. It was a huge thing.
And I remember we used to sit down and we would write all the numbers and we'd play, we wouldn't do it, but we'd like play along with it every Saturday.
I don't do the National Lottery because I
don't
think,
like charity.
Well, I just think the problem is I don't want to get stuck into that thing of like, people who do the same numbers every week. I would hate to do that because like the one week you don't, do you know what I mean? You're trapping yourself. People who do birthdays and stuff like that, I'm like, I can't get involved. Listen, I'm in an abusive relationship with scratch cards. I can't get involved with the lottery as well. Cannot happen. Cannot happen.
There was something, I'll try and keep it as vague as I can, but there was something I was at recently and people were given like the space to tell a secret to kind of like bond. And this I'll tell you what it is.
I fuck dogs.
Yeah, well, that was mine, obviously. I was like, is it even a secret if it's on a T-shirt? I'll tell you what it was after, and it isn't as bad as I'm making it sound. I'm trying to keep it vague. So people shared a secret, and this person's secret was my family won the lottery but didn't tell anybody else.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
And because what so often happens if people win the lottery, their lives actually become very complicated and they feel very compromised. People come and ask them for money or, they get scammed, etc. So, yeah, they'd grown up knowing only the nuclear family knew about the lottery win.
Yeah.
And they'd grown up with it.
Oh, that's quite cool.
Because you could, who knows if you silently clear your mortgage and you go on maybe one really nice holiday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't go public. That's my advice. If you win the lottery, don't be going public.
Keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Although these days, if you win £1 million, what's that? Nothing. It's not even a fucking nice big house anymore, is it?
Not in fact,
if you won £1 million, I think people would go, do you know what? We're not going to send any begging letters. They've just not got enough, to be honest.
Well, in my little village in Wales, which has no amenities. It has no shop, no pub, anything like that. It's a nice village. There's no sea view. It is quite, countryside-y. It's on, obviously, the island's nice. A 4-bedroom bungalow has come up for sale for just over £500,000, and it is fucking wild. How can anyone afford a family house?
Well,
a house?
As you know, this is probably the last podcast that I'll be recording from this flat because I'm moving in the next couple of weeks. And this flat has sold for...
It has sold?
Just for just over £500,000. And you've been in my flat. This flat should be 24 grand. That's my opinion. And I looked at, when you look through how, because I've lived here for 6 years, 7 years. I looked through how much rent I'd paid and I told my mum, she went, that's more than my house is worth.
Mad.
We are fucked.
Yeah.
Fucked. No one can get you're just trapped in this sort of cycle of paying for, it's madness, isn't it?
It's wild.
Over £500,000 for they say 2 bedrooms. It's a tiny box room and a bedroom for a maisonette. So,
mad.
Enjoy.
Fucking hell.
If I had £500,000 to buy a house with, I wouldn't buy it in London. Absolutely not.
No.
I'd go somewhere nice.
You get 4-bedroom bungalow in my village. That's what you get.
There you go. But you see, I'd rather have that. That's nicer, It
is a big bungalow, but yeah.
Oh, it's a big bungalow.
So this happens. They find these white gloves in Stephen's room. One's turned inside out. They're both covered in blood. And so they've been taken off, obviously, in the room. They also find the lens from a pair of glasses. Now, they see it at first, then they kind of have to move there's shit everywhere. They have to move Stephen's body. So when they move his body, it is sort of shoved under like an ice skating boot or something like that.
What is this house? It's like a fucking... you play those games that on you get it's like a spooky game, but it's on like on the iPad or whatever, and you've got to find the items, you know what I mean? It would be like, ice skate, bloody trombone, like that kind of fucking thing. This is what this house is. Like an ice skate just hanging around.
So under the ice skate is a lens from glasses. This will become important. And also the fact that it's moved accidentally becomes very important and is one of the reasons that he is free at the moment. So blood everywhere. Poor kid has been strangled with his own T-shirt. He's put up a fight. Now, the police officer in Stephen's room yells down, I've found him. And at this point, David starts to have a fit. Now, he has got epilepsy. He gets wedged between the bed and the wall.
Oh, what a nuisance. There's a lot going on, mate. We don't need this now.
Well, you'll love this bit.
It's falling down the back of the sofa. Unbelievable.
Like a fucking coin.
Yeah, like a coin and a yellow fruit pastel.
So the police officer gets him in the recovery position and is like, it's very weird that he's having a fit and his eyes are completely normal. There's no like rolling back in the head or anything. Also, his pulse is kind of normal. His recovery is very quick. Yes, it's so basically there's this kind of thing where he's like, I'm not sure that was a fit, but okay.
He's just showing his range.
Well, obviously an aspiring actor. Now, the St. John's ambulance arrives shortly afterwards. He starts shaking again, has another fit. Now, the St. John's ambulance, they check his vitals. They're all absolutely normal. And the guy says the patient was presenting as unconscious. And he says, we have some tests that we do. One of the things we do is we'll like touch, when their eyes are closed, we'll touch their eyelashes. Because if they're conscious, that you always sort of like have a reaction to it. He said, did that. He had a reaction. His eyes and everything. Basically, he says, I've seen people faking fits before who were having, in the middle of a mental health crisis. And his behaviour is consistent with someone who is pretending to have a fit when they are not actually having one. So,
very vague very diplomatic.
Yes, very diplomatic. Now, he only says a couple of things. He's there for hours and hours and hours. It's the night when they take him out. He says, he gets up at one point, he goes, I've got to go to uni. I'm actually studying music. I'm a singer. and they're like...
This guy is showing his range. I can sing as well.
So he's like, I can murder my family, I can sing. I'm a threat to the people in this house specifically.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So they're like, listen, mate, you're not going to university, so just sit yourself down. Then he mutters a lot about black hands coming to get them. There's this thing about black hands that comes up. I can see black hands taking my family away. And they're like, okay. Now, that's obviously making a note of everything he's saying. And then at one point he says, can I have my glasses? Now, David's glasses had broken the Thursday before the murders. They were being like repaired, or he'd ordered another pair, something like that. So the guy in the room is like, oh, there's a pair of broken glasses on his bedside table with one lens and the frame is broken, but it's missing another lens. Mm-hmm. And so he assumes, well, that must be his glasses. But David doesn't actually have any. Now, they were his mum's glasses. The broken ones were one lens. They were his mum's. His mum had a very similar prescription to him. Now, he says, I haven't worn those in months because it's a big smoking gun that one of those lenses is in Stephen's room and by the body, as if there has been a struggle.
I mean, with that and the actual smoking gun, there is...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also an actual smoking gun. So they're sort of like, it looks like there's been a struggle. The glasses have been broken. Someone's picked up a lens they could find and glasses they can find. And then they've been put on David's bedside table. David's like, oh, I haven't even worn those in ages. It wasn't me. But then he also says to his lawyer at some point, oh, yeah, I'd wear them in the house. I've been wearing mum's glasses because they did the job. And the lawyer feels so guilty about it. He tells the prosecution, I know he has been wearing them. It's a lie that he's not worn them for months. He has been regularly wearing them. So I think one of his friends also sees them in it. Now there's so much shit like this in it. So they think in Stephen's room they got broken in a struggle, right? Now the next person to be killed, they think, is Ara, the girl who's praying. So what they think happened is whoever killed them shot them in their beds, and then there's a struggle with Stephen. And she downstairs hears the shots, hears the struggle, and starts praying for her life. Now, the lights are all off. The person has now potentially, who wore glasses, not got any glasses on and can't see very well, which is why in Adawa's room there is a bullet wound that is just, there is a bullet in the wall that never hit her, because this is someone in the dark with no glasses on trying to see to shoot someone, which is why there's like a miss on that one and not on the others. So he goes to stay with his aunt, who is I think she works, or one of the roles she has is in like victim to support. His aunt goes forward to basically act for the prosecution and say, I think he did it. Because she was like, he was behaving really strangely. And bearing in mind, she kind of supports victims. Again, there's no normal way to behave, right?
No, but I guess there are patterns of how people behave.
So there's weird things that happen. For instance, he insists on reading the newspaper. The newspaper covers the murders. He reads it, and then he sort of disappears into her room, and she goes to check on him after a while, and he's sat there, and he starts talking about these black hands coming to take them away. He starts like leaning forward and dribbling, and he's talking about these black hands.
Insanity's please coming in now, is it?
Well, it does feel a little bit, it feels bizarre. And then she says... he says something about Stephen had to fight, and that someone, and I think about Adawa, she was out of bed, and he was like, who could have, that person looked them in the eye and shot them. Like they weren't in bed sleeping. About Robin, but he was like saying they had to look them in the eye and shoot them. And Auntie was like, this is such a weird thing to be saying, because the newspaper doesn't tell him that they were out of bed. He reads the article, which doesn't say where the bodies are, and then has this reaction where... And then later on he says, it was in the newspaper, that's why I acted like that.
Oh, but then again, he has been at the crime scene.
No, because his whole thing to the police was, I've only seen my mum and dad. So it's so weird that he's going, they're all dead, they're all dead.
Yeah, that's a good point. How does he know they're all dead? I mean, surely what you would... I mean, as I say, you don't know how anyone's going to behave. But if I came into the house and I found my mum and dad dead, and I knew my sister was in there, for example, the first thing I'd do is go and see where she was, or go and see where my other siblings were, or what that's
correct.
Yeah, I wouldn't be assuming that they're all dead.
No, and he says, I only saw my mum and dad's body. But then there's this weird thing where, in his defence, the house is covered in blood that they think is on the shooter's clothes that have been sort of brushed on different doors and things like that. And maybe it's David, that 20 minutes where he's kind of blacked out, he's wandering around the house, he does actually see the bodies, he does sort of process what's going on.
I don't know. Well, I think we know what I think.
He also says...
Can't get me on thinking, I can think what I like.
He's also rubbing his eyes, and his auntie goes...
hay fever, bloody hell.
The real tragedy. I don't mean that, obviously. He's rubbing his eyes, and he says, she says, where are your glasses? And he goes, yeah, my glasses, my eyes are hurting because I need my glasses. I've been wearing Mum's. I've been wearing a pair of Mum's old ones for ages. But she doesn't remember this bit of conversation until like 6 years after the original trial. So, there's a lot of that stuff for people remembering things in hindsight. There's also some weird stuff he says to his girlfriend at the time. So it comes out...
Can't believe he's got a girlfriend.
I know. He's tall, isn't he? That'll do it. That'll get over the line with some man. The police turn around and say to him, there's no third parties. This was you or your father. Now, there is evidence for Robin being... Well, there's a lot of evidence for Robin, but in that he is the warmest of the bodies, so he was definitely killed last. He has the gun in his hand. He has the ammunition. In fact, he has 20 spent casings of ammunition in his caravan. And there's this whole big thing about there you go, he was clearly sneaking the gun away from David. But then there's this other thing where he'd taken David to the school to, what is it called? Adjust the focus, adjust the sight on the gun. So there had been...
I don't bloody know.
Well, they've been I don't know. It's almost like when you tune a guitar, but that for a gun. So they've been doing that.
You've just... this is something I've discovered recently, something that I cannot watch. So Tim's got a guitar. When I see people restringing a guitar, it reminds me of when you had braces and they tighten them.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, I saw him doing it the other week, and I was like, oh, and I could feel it on my teeth. Yeah, on both, yeah. And on the back, I had loads of teeth out. I had quite extensive oral bracery. Orthodontics, that's it.
You left a big enough pause between oral and what you were saying next for someone to do something absolutely vile with that.
But yeah, I can't. I said to him, like, oh God, I can't watch you doing that. It just reminds me of when because it was so painful. I imagine it's better now. It was so painful, like the tighten it to make your teeth straight. Oh God! And it just when he was stringing it, I was like, oh, I'm just having flashbacks to being a teenager and
wow,
and the pain of the brace. It really went through me. Ugh.
A friend of ours had, and I didn't think they still did this in this day and age. Who's younger than both of us by a little bit, so is in like mid-30s now. A friend of ours had one of those full head braces.
Oh God, yeah,
like a helmet that you wear. That's like. Yeah, and so there's no pictures of this person because they would hold something in front of their head whenever there was a picture being taken. But like, how awful is that? Just having
Who is it?
Yeah, you'll have to beep that, Owen.
No way.
Yeah, just in case they don't want anyone knowing. But yeah,
bloody hell,
gorgeous teeth,
lovely teeth.
I mean, job well done.
But, I'm a bit tooth obsessed. Me, I'm a bit.
Well, I've got awful teeth, but
I think it's one of my OCD things that I.
Oh, about your
obsessed.
teeth?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. So I went to, we all go to the dentist, orthodontist, and my teeth are a disaster. I got wonky ones because they said you got one wonky one. Do you want a brace or not? Like, we can give you. And I was like, well, no, obviously not. Because like when you're a teenager, you don't want a brace because of the whatever stigma.
Yeah.
So now I've got wonky teeth because they were like, do you want one or not? And I was like, no, thank you. When they should have just gone, we're going to give you one to sort that out.
I had so much, I had about 7 teeth out. I had braces on the top and the bottom. I had a brace all the way through secondary school.
Really?
On both teeth, or nearly. I think it was all the way through. And I also had elastic bands. Those ones.
Oh yeah.
I had that. I had a brace on the back. It was really painful, but I'm glad I had it. Really glad I had it now. But I think this is why it's part of my anxiety that I get obsessed with my teeth, and I go to the dentist about 4 times a year. Really? Listen, tooth in Waterloo fucking love me, let me tell you. They cannot get enough. In fact, I'm there on Wednesday. I go about 4 times a year and floss every night. I'm obsessed. And I got a tax rebate years ago, and I had 3 black fillings, and I got them replaced with white ones. Yeah.
Well, I think all my fillings are at the point where they're going to start falling out my head, and I'm with a private dentist now because there aren't any NHS dentists.
No, exactly.
And they always replace them white anyway, so I'm just going to wait for nature to take its course.
Listen, let me tell you, just if you treat your teeth well.
Oh, it's shocking teeth.
I don't think you have.
As in, they're just full of just shit. They're just held together with fillings at this point. My parents both got terrible teeth as well. And my dad especially, but that's because he used to brush his teeth with Vim. So that will do it. You know about that, right? Yeah. He was like, when I was a kid, they, Vim that you would shake down drains.
Yeah.
He used to brush his teeth with it.
Oh my holy fucking God. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, not the brightest thing to do. Back to David. Man, I don't know much about his teeth, to be honest. But the police have said to him, listen, it's you or your dad. And so his girlfriend is like, oh God, that's what... His girlfriend said, I was just so worried that he would be falsely accused. And she said, well, what do you think about that? And he said, this is such a weird sentence. But again, this is potentially an incredible... Well, either way, a really traumatised person. That is a horrific thing to have either done or witnessed or, seen the aftermath of. He said, if my father did this, I could never forgive him. Which is such a weird thing to say, especially about someone who's already dead. So he then goes, and if it was me and I interrupted him and she stops. No, she goes, and if it was me and then she goes, I interrupted him and was like, well, it obviously wasn't you. Don't even entertain that. So he kind of is going, he's basically positing this sort of blackout theory. And because he had recently had a blackout, they'd been to see this thing called Symphonia they'd been watching this opera thing, and his friends were all like, what's he done? And he'd gone into this trance state, and he'd been sort of like staring forward. And then afterwards he was like, woke up and was like, has any time passed? And they were like,
he's getting on my nerves. He's getting on my fucking nerves, this guy. The whole thing, I hate this so much.
He says some very weird stuff to this girlfriend. He says, Stephen had to fight so much and he was stronger than me. Which is a weird thing to say, very weird thing to say if you didn't murder anyone. But it's also... the antithesis of one of the things that's used as his defence is like, David is 22, he's massive, Stephen's only 14. It can't have been him fighting. It must have been Robin, because Robin was frail and the fight was clearly so aggressive. But I think that's people who haven't seen brothers fight each other, which is absolute. My brothers used to physically fight each other and it was chilling. They'd look like they're trying to kill each other. Do you know what my mother did once? She threw a bucket of cold water over them when they were fighting in the yard.
Fucking hell.
Which is
scary, isn't it?
What she used to do when the dogs fought as well. So she's sort of got one method for most things.
It's ages ago, when Tim's old flat, there was a gay couple upstairs, two guys, and they obviously didn't have a very healthy relationship, may I say, and they would physically fight, and you'd wake up at like 2 a.m. and you'd be like, what the fuck is that? And you'd think, is the house falling down? And I'm like, oh no, they're having a fucking row. And then you forget, it's like, it's two men.
Yeah.
They're fucking scrapping, aren't they?
Well, like my old neighbours, the two Johns next door when I lived near you. And they'd be like, do you know what? The sound of a human punching another human is such a horrible sound. They'd be like... And they would like, dun, 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 poof. And then they'd be like, and onst I heard him cleaning after that.
That sounded like the theme tune to Keeping Up Appearances, that.
But they were like physically fighting each other, they'd smash something up. Then I heard one of them hoovering. They never hoovered, so I was like, well, he's cleaning a fucking crime scene. And the problem was that Dad
That's his teeth going into the Dyson there, that's what's happening.
It was awful. I could hear him cleaning at 2 o'clock in the morning and I thought, this is a fucking murder. And then I saw the dad about 3 weeks later. But
yeah, it's scary, like... Anything like that's just
Have I told you this? So I had not terrible neighbours either side, fine, but like I'd say substance abuses either side. So we had been away from the house quite a bit in lockdown because we've been in Wales, right? Went back to the house and my next door neighbour on that side, the fighty side, the garden was full of bottles of Lucozade full of piss.
Oh my God.
Because they'd torn the toilet out and hadn't replaced it, and they were just pissing in bottles and throwing it into our yard. And then also boxer shorts full of shit where they'd shat themselves and they threw them over the thing.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
What the fuck is wrong with people?
There comes a point that I'm like, I'm done with everybody. I can't, like...
My partner wasn't thrilled to have to clean that stuff up, I will say.
Jesus Christ.
He's there with his girlfriend. One day they decide to go, this is in a couple of days, because obviously he's arrested 4 days later. They go for a walk with her mate, the girlfriend, her friend, and David. And as they're walking along, the friend, who I think I mentioned in the previous episode, he had said, oh, I've had this weird premonition that something awful's going to happen to my family.
Ah,
do you remember this?
Yes.
This friend goes, oh my God, do you remember you telling me that you think you had this premonition that something awful was going to happen to your family? Do you think this is it? And he goes, yeah, I think it is. And then he falls to his knees and he grabs his stomach and he starts screaming and screaming and screaming. And the girlfriend turns around and is like, what the fuck have you said? Because the girlfriend thinks she said, did you do it? He's acting so sort of in such a extreme way. And she's like, no, I didn't say anything like that. And they finally kind of calm him down. They keep going on this walk. And then he goes, can I just go up here? I just will need a minute. So he goes up this little lane and he's there for 15 minutes and they can just hear him screaming. They can just hear him screaming the whole time and like yelling. And then he comes back 15 minutes later. He's like, okay,
David, the park is for everybody. Can you stop, please?
And then he comes back and he goes, do you think I should tell the police about my premonition?
No, forget it now.
Yeah. Well, it's very weird. And he keeps saying, do you know what? If it turns out to be my dad, I'm going to be so angry with him. But it's like, it can only be your dad or you. It's just a very weird thing to be saying, but also it's a weird event. Now, the other thing that happens after in these 4 days is he is examined by a doctor. Now, at the time the doctor is examining him doesn't think he's a suspect. He thinks he's a victim. So the things that the doctor notices, there's a massive bruise on his head, like a really big lump on his head. He scraped his knee. Stephen has a similar scrape on his knee. And he's got really red knuckles, like he's been fighting someone. Now, he was seen on his paper round and he didn't have any of these injuries. So these injuries have occurred between visiting the doctor shortly after his family was killed and ending the paper round. So it's happened in that time in the house. Now he says, oh, the lump on my head, or the defence say, that was when I was put in the recovery position very roughly when I was having a fit. So they said that's how he's got that bump on his head. Now, there's also a very weird thing where he has scratches across his chest. The doctor doesn't see these. David says he removes his clothes for the examination for the doctor. It's not noted anywhere if he does or not. So the doctor should have clocked them. But there's these like claw marks across his chest. And it's actually a prison guard when he's changing his clothes. He takes off his clothes and he puts his thing that sees these now slightly faded, but still definitely there, like fight marks on his chest and bruises on his shoulder. And that's something he brings up, but I think it's only again in the second trial. So he has got signs of a struggle on him. He's got signs that he had a fight. He can't explain how he got them. He didn't have them on his paper round. There's another really interesting thing that happens on his paper round. So there's a dog on the paper round that I'll tell you two things about the paper round. Number one is that there's a dog that as soon as you step on like the porch goes berserk, and the owners of that house said, when you deliver the paper, can you just leave it at the bottom of the porch? Don't step on it because the dog goes mad. We get woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he went, yeah, fine. And so for a year, he hadn't stepped on the porch. And then suddenly, for the first time in a year, on the day of the murders, he steps on the porch, so the dog goes berserk, and they go, oh yeah, I know exactly what time David was at my house because he stepped on the porch and the dog woke us up. It was at 6, and I looked at my watch and it was 6:02 or whatever the time was. So it just feels like a very convenient, very weird thing to have happened.
Yes.
The other thing he says is, people are basically going, you could run that. You're a very fast runner. You could run that, and you could have been... Because he was like, God, I think I was only back just about 7 o'clock. And they were like, well, no, because he's saying, oh, I was back later than that. And I only had a couple of minutes and then I phoned the police straight away when I found the bodies. Because it's less likely if he had, 20 minutes or whatever. But the theory is from the other bodies being colder is that he shot the family and then he came in before he knew Robin was going to go in there and pray. And he waited behind the curtain. Robin came in and he shot him and then he staged the scene. And then he phoned the police. Oh, he put a wash load on because there was a wash load. It was the jumper that had been worn by the shooter. It was a green jumper that they were like, it would have been too small for David. But Robin was like wearing the clothes that he probably went to bed in. It's all very like all over the shop. So one of the things he says is, I couldn't have done the paper round quickly because I'd taken Cassie, the dog, with us and was like, God, she's really slow. She's an old dog. But apparently Cassie used to run alongside him and he was like, oh no, I had to stop and wait for her. But most people were like, no, that dog was not old. It was fit. It was healthy. It was speedy and would frequently go out with him and keep pace with him. So there's just some very weird things going on. Now the gun is covered in blood. The silencer, everything is covered in blood. Loads of things aren't done properly. The footprints aren't taken properly, but also the gun, they don't test, because it's got these perfect fingerprints on the trigger, they don't test the blood to see who it belongs to. They test it on the other stuff. It's mainly Stephen's blood on the gun, so he was probably, hit with the gun. Also, Stephen was bleeding everywhere because of this hand wound. And they find fingerprints that match David's on the trigger in blood, but they don't test it to see if it is blood because they think it's more important to have the fingerprint intact. So then what happens is in the first trial, they say he must have absent-mindedly picked up the gun and not remembered about it. And then in the second hand... But then the weird thing is David has incredibly clean hands when he's found in the house.
Oh, that's funny, isn't it?
Yes. Well, in the second trial, someone goes, that's not even blood. I think that's paint, actually, that's been left on there for ages and ages ago. And that's why it's David's fingerprints, is because it's paint. And then someone else is like, oh no, it's rabbit blood.
Oh, God.
Oh, not paint, sorry. They say it's like other bodily fluids mixed with paint. And then they go, oh no, it's rabbit's blood. He was shooting rabbits.
Who's in the house? Anthony Gormley. Fucking hell.
So it's this very weird thing about, you know, was it blood? It wasn't tested right. They also never tested the blood inside the silencer, because that would have shown it was something to do with Robin's death, about Robin, you know, whose blood was in there last, basically.
This whole thing's a mess and I hate it.
It is a mess, and it's also, you know, not many murders happen in New Zealand, so you have a kind of inexperienced police force.
Yeah, I was thinking that,
who aren't taking evidence, you know, properly. It's a complicated crime scene with a lot of victims. So the whole thing about the blood is they basically say this has to have been Robin's footprint because it's the same size. And it was whoever did it walked around in socks so as not to wake up the people. So they got it from measuring the luminol. Then they do a lab test in the second trial where they stand in a tray of blood and then they step on the carpet and they measure the things, and they realise that actually it would have shown up smaller, and therefore it was too big to be Robin's, and it must have been David's feet, which are much bigger. But then people are like, well, whoever was murdered them wasn't stood in a tray of blood. It was just bits of blood. So it wasn't a fair test. But that's basically one of the things that got it overturned later on. It's so complicated. It's so complicated. So, as you say,
but it isn't really, is it?
Well, yeah, well. So 4 days after, as you say, the murders, he's arrested. It's weird. It's kind of a family friend who's very involved in this, who's a copper. He's very close to them. They've got the son is called Shane, and he's a really good friend of David's. David is so close to them, he calls the parents mum and dad. Well, I bet you've got a view on that. People who call people mum and dad that aren't their mum and dads.
Don't you dare. If I heard anyone other than my sister call my parents mum and dad, I would go berserk.
I don't imagine you ever doing it with someone else's either.
Absolutely not. Do you know my dad? Have I mentioned this before? My dad never called my grandparents by their first name. He always called them Mr. and Mrs.
What? So what? No.
Yeah. So he'd say, "Oh, like
what,
Mr.
his
Foley."
mother and father.
Like my mum's parents.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so like nicely old fashioned.
Yeah, he'd say, "Oh, Mrs. Foley," about my grandma, or does Mr. Foley need this? Or it's quite sweet, isn't it? When you think about it,
that's really sweet.
It's really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would. Oh my God, I would never call someone's mum. I've got really strong views on stuff like this. Like, I think people that, like, if you're in a relationship with somebody, you have no right to say anything about their family whatsoever. You have no, like, even if my parents or my sister had done something that really pissed me off and they were in the wrong, I'm allowed to vent about it. But if, for example, Tim said something, I'd go, wind your neck in, you're not allowed.
Oh, I don't know, because my brother lived with us during lockdown.
What's that weird? There's a weird noise at the minute. What's that? It's gone now. Go on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
when you talk, there's a weird noise. Can you hear it? Is everything all right, Owen? Well, this is going to be the end of the episode because I've had a technical problem which involved Kiri sounding like a really weird, scary little girl ghost. And unfortunately for me, because I hate this subject, we're going on for a third episode, which will be the trials. Boy, oh boy, I can't wait for that. Thank you so much for listening. Kiri, anything to report? Anything you've got coming up?
Oh, yes. If you're based, sorry if I sound like a creepy little girl. If you're based in North Wales, if you're based in North Wales, we're doing a fundraiser for a local, for a family from Afghanistan who is setting locally. It's going to be at Gwen. It'll be on my website. Oh, and if you've got a funny kid, I've got a comedy school. We're running summer school at Pontio in Bangor in August with Gwneud Make Do, my comedy school. So Gwneud is the Welsh word for make or do. Gwneud Make Do. It'll be on Pontio's website and on our website.
Lovely stuff. My special, I hate saying that, my Showgirl, is out on YouTube. You can watch it now. That's it.
That's it.
Thank you for listening. Join us for part 3 soon.
Legends, just me, Kiri, popping in here to give you a heads up that we have a special Christmas show coming to you. We're heading to a town that we have been to hundreds of times before, but never ever done an all Killa no filler show there. In fact, if you have ever travelled anywhere by train in the UK, chances are you have been there too. Have you guessed where we're going? Yes, we're coming to Crewe, to the beautiful Lyceum Theatre on December the 4th. Christmas isn't Christmas without the All Killa show, and we're kicking off the festive season nice and early. So, if you are signed up to our mailing list, you will get access to tickets earlier on Wednesday, July the 2nd. But if you're listening to this after the fact or the pre-sale is sold out, do not worry, the rest of the tickets go on general sale on Friday the 4th of July. So, if you want to join us for a special Christmas show in a beautiful venue that is almost definitely haunted, make sure that you're on our mailing list. See you in December!